All right, well, we do have some very interesting transfer portal and recruiting news to do with the University of Nebraska. First off, Kyle McCord. You can see different people predicting him to possibly go to Nebraska. Not all that surprising. Nebraska has been one of the front runners for McCord. I'd also heard Miami, but it seems like they're in on someone else that I'm going to talk about later in this video. Right now, it does seem rather likely that Kyle McCord could end up on Nebraska. And I'll just say, this is nothing against Kyle McCord, but in general, I do not think this is a game changer for Nebraska. I understand Kyle McCord was an Ohio State quarterback, but that offense under Ryan Day, the quarterback normally puts up crazy stats. Kyle McCord just didn't do it this past season, just 24 passing touchdowns. It is still a solid get for Nebraska if it happens, but I would see like a 7-5 type team with McCord as the starter next year. This would be his fourth year in college. So obviously he's going to want to be basically assured the starting job wherever he transfers to. That's why I've kind of thrown in maybe Pittsburgh gets in the mix, maybe Rutgers, a team like that. But right now it does seem like Nebraska is the option for McCord. Why is this weird though? It's weird because we heard a rumor about Dylan Raiola. And Dylan Raiola, if you don't know this kid's story, it seems like he's been in college for 2 years already. He's still a recruit. He originally, I think Georgia was the first team to identify him. He ends up committing to Ohio State. He moves from Arizona to Georgia, decommits from Ohio State. It looks like he's about to commit to Nebraska, doesn't end up doing it, commits to Georgia, moves to Georgia to recruit, and now is possibly taking a visit to Nebraska. And you've got Georgia fans on message boards saying they want to stop his flight from going. I mean, this is a big-time recruit. He is a top 5 recruit. He was the number 1 overall recruit when he was committed to Ohio State, which was a while ago. He's been bumped down a little bit. But either way, Dylan Raiola possibly also interested in Nebraska as well. If this just doesn't make any sense to me. Kyle McCord is obviously going to want to be guaranteed the starting job wherever he goes, and I'm guessing Dylan Raiola, if he's going to Nebraska, is going to want the starting job as well. If you are Nebraska, who do you hitch your wagon to if you can't have both of them? I'm sure Nebraska is hoping, well, if we get McCord and Raiola, you could have Raiola back up McCord because he'd be a true freshman, and normally true freshman QBs don't start. When they do, they don't perform very well, most likely. Just ask Dante Moore. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, but I would assume that Dylan Raiola, if he does end up decommitting from Georgia and committing to Nebraska, he's going to want to be guaranteed the starting role right out of the gate. And if you're Nebraska, do you take on Raiola with the thought that he might just hit the portal after one bad season, considering we know how easy it is now with the transfer portal just to get up and leave your team? Or do you just take McCord and say, at least we're going to be getting a quality quarterback, possibly try and win 8 games next year? It'll be interesting. This is good for Nebraska. You want to be in the news. They played hard this season. They had some close losses. Although it seems like that's Nebraska every year now. But they have a great fan base. They always seem to have a decent enough defense. They sell out every game. And if they do get a solid quarterback, it will be interesting. Although certainly their schedule, it's almost like Nebraska missed their window. This is a team with such a great fan base, and they had such an easy division year after year after year, and they just couldn't win close games, and they couldn't find the right coach. Maybe they do have the right coach now in Matt Rule. I know the players are galvanized around him. That was kind of the narrative coming out of this season, but it seems like, is it McCord? Is it Raiola? Is it both of them? Is it neither of them? I don't think it can be both. If they both want to be guaranteed the starting job, maybe Raiola is okay with waiting a year. McCord goes in for a year, he plays, he goes to the NFL draft because he would have been in college 4 years at that point. And then Raiola takes over as a redshirt freshman. That might be the perfect dream handoff for Nebraska, to where you have quality quarterbacks. But either way, I'm not exactly sure if that's going to work out if they both want to be starting. If Nebraska goes ahead and takes Raiola and he is the starter, where does that leave McCord? Does McCord possibly go to another school? Maybe Miami's in the mix. Maybe another team like Pittsburgh's in the mix, or Rutgers. We will see either way. We also do have news on Cam Ward, who's about to visit Miami. And you can see this is a crystal ball prediction, or I don't know what this is. This is one of the predictions from the sites you can see going to Miami. This does not surprise me at all. There's already been reports that Miami is going to be hosting both Will Howard and Cam Ward. So I'm guessing Miami is going to be throwing around their NIL dollars. They understand they're desperate to get a big-time quarterback based on how the past few years have gone. They've already invested a lot in this team, and the quarterback is by far the most important position. They are going to drop some money, possibly on Cam Ward. Seems like that's the fit right now for Miami, which makes the Ohio State situation even more interesting considering they're still looking for a transfer portal QB, and we got this other big transfer portal news today. Riley Leonard, this is what we expected, committing to Notre Dame. It was already, not that it was already announced, but right when the portal opened or right when everyone knew Riley Leonard was entering it, Notre Dame was the heavy favorite. Auburn was a distant number 2. Now, there were reports over the past few days that Ohio State was very interested in Riley Leonard, which is very curious to me because if you're Riley Leonard and you're transferring somewhere for 1 year, you're going to want to go to the place that will put you in position to be a high draft pick. Obviously, that would be Ohio State over Notre Dame. I don't know if maybe this is an academics thing. Maybe it was just misreported and Ohio State wasn't that interested. But if I was Riley Leonard and I could choose between all these different schools and Ohio State came knocking, maybe it was a situation where Ryan Day couldn't guarantee Riley Leonard the starting spot. That could also be it. Like, you'd have to fight for it. And Riley Leonard is very, very likely going to be the starter at Notre Dame. Notre Dame using smaller ACC schools as feeder schools. It is sad. First it was Wake Forest and now it is Duke, but that's a good get for them. You know, a lot of people are underrating Riley Leonard. They're looking at his stats this year, just 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. Those are very misleading. He played really well early in the season. He got injured and tried to play through it. He's a dual threat. Think of someone like Josh Allen type quarterback, and obviously not as strong as of an arm, but still he's like a bigger guy that can run a little bit and really throw his body around. So Riley Leonard, is he better than Sam Hartman? Like, if you want to compare Sam Hartman transferring to Notre Dame versus Riley Leonard, they're certainly different quarterbacks. And in terms of college, I think Riley Leonard could be better than Sam Hartman with his running ability, but Notre Dame has lost several key receivers to the portal. They're going to have to replace those. I know they've also returned some players, but either way, that's good for Notre Dame. You know, you don't have to break in a quarterback. Well, I guess you do have to break Riley Leonard in, but he's got a lot of experience. It's not like this is a first-year starting quarterback. He's already started at Duke for multiple seasons. And it's interesting to kind of listen to the narrative surrounding the Ohio State quarterback situation with the recent news of Riley Leonard being off the board and possibly Cam Ward trending to Miami. It always seemed like Cam Ward was the main guy for Ohio State, to the point where we were seeing Cam Ward listed as like 5th or 6th in terms of odds for next year's Heisman, because I think there was some speculation that Cam Ward was going to go to Ohio State, and if that happened, certainly he wouldn't be like a top 3 or 4 favorite, but he'd be on the board considering the talent that would be surrounding him. I would say right now, if I had to guess, Cam Ward would go to Miami, and you would have Will Howard possibly go somewhere like Mississippi State. I know they still need a quarterback. Michigan possibly an option for a transfer QB as well, although they're focused on their playoff game. But either way, it looks like right now Ohio State possibly going to stay in-house, which you do have to question a little bit, especially considering Devin Brown. I've been hearing a lot of Ohio State fans who like Devin Brown. It's very interesting considering Devin Brown couldn't even beat out Kyle McCord, who is now transferring because, you know, he was just inefficient. Ryan Day said he was going to have to fight for the job. He didn't take it, and he really struggled at times throughout the season. Maybe Lincoln Kienholz ends up being the starter. We'll have to see who they start in terms of the bowl game. And then just one other thing I wanted to mention, kind of flying under the radar a little bit because of the Dylan Gabriel situation, all of this Nebraska news. You did have Chandler Rogers committing to California. Now, I like this California team next year moving to the ACC. They've got a really good running back, Chandler Rogers, originally from North Texas. Very high scoring team. That's kind of an under the radar move that I would be watching in terms of that. But the big story, I would say, guys, it's Kyle McCord. It's Dylan Raiola. Can Nebraska get both of them? If it were up to me, would I take Raiola? Would I take McCord? If I could only take one of them, it probably would be Raiola. I don't think there's a great answer here. The issue with Raiola is you have to worry about him transferring. I mean, he's already committed and decommitted. to Ohio State, possibly decommitting from Georgia now and committing to Nebraska. The transfer portal is a very easy thing for players now, especially considering Nebraska hasn't had the greatest track record in terms of attracting elite wide receiver talent in recent years. Raiola might get sick of it after a year, maybe 2 years and transfer, but I would take the chance on Dylan Raiola considering Nebraska has not brought in a quarterback talent like that in literally forever. So we will see. But guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.